And let me introduce our new speaker, Griff Green. Hey.
Hey,
Griff is a
Max.
great friend of mine. I'll introduce you in a second, but just try to share your slides via screen or just upload them.
Yeah, I can share them. Let me get them up here. Good point.
So Griff is a founder of Giveth. He's one of the pioneers in the public goods funding. Builder with a great track record. And yeah, looking forward to hear all the new stuff you're working on within this field.
Me too. I'm excited to show it to you guys. How's that? Yeah, it's working great. Okay. First off, thank you so much, Max, for having me here. I've been working in the Web3 capital allocation space. This is like, how do we do interesting, innovative things with programmable money to fund the things that we want to see in this world? I've been working in this space since 2016. My first project was actually the DAO, which caused a fork in Ethereum and created Ethereum Classic. You could say I'm a founder of Ethereum Classic. I have been since then working with Giveth, which is kind of my base of operations for all things to do with building something better than governments. My main theory of change is that when governments fail to provide value that society demands, people start nonprofits. And nonprofits are actually the free market solution to governments. And we just need to make it so that nonprofits can be profitable. And then we can have competition in the public goods space. I know that's all a whole lot of jargon, but I wanted to just put it out there for those that can understand my crazy language. And I'll go deeper into some of those things right now. So first off, why Web3? Honestly, I'm not going to spend too much time on this because I have so much to talk about. And Paul Brody, I saw, did a great job explaining why Web3. Having a decentralized infrastructure that is transparent and trustless in many ways. You can trust it to do whatever you need it to do. This is critical for building the kind of tools that we want to do to build something, a new kind of government. And I think Ukraine is in this has magical space to build something new and better than what has been here before. And that's why I'm so excited to talk to you guys today. The other big thing that Web3 has provided this space is innovative ways to fund what is called public goods. So public goods is one of the 4 types of economic goods. So in like hardcore economics, there's these 4 types of public goods. I'm not a hardcore economist, so I kind of like to break it up into private goods and public goods. Private goods are excludable, like your cell phone or a movie theater. Now, technically, those are private goods and club goods, but for our work here, we can just say private goods are excludable. This is things that you can sell, right? And things that are valuable by selling. You know, you can have really good business models here, and private goods are really what businesses provide the world. And we have great business models for providing public goods. However, for providing private goods. However, businesses suck at providing public goods. So that's where governments and nonprofits come in. When I say public goods, I just mean excludable goods. So this is common pool resources and public goods. Common pool resources are non-excludable and rivalrous, like fish in a bay. Public goods, like pure public goods, barely exist, but they're like air or radio waves. And really, the main point here is that when something is non-excludable, when a value that you want to create for society is difficult to exclude people from enjoying, think of like having a downtown that doesn't have a lot of homeless people in it, or having fish in a bay. It's really hard to stop people from fishing in a bay. It's a bay, right? How do you keep and provide more fish in a bay? Well, that's something that governments and nonprofits tend to do for society today. And that was, governments basically had a monopoly on public goods up until 2009 when Bitcoin was created. So what's really interesting is Bitcoin was the first instance of a public good being funded, public infrastructure being funded, not by a government, not by a nonprofit, not by a business, but by an economic system. So anyone in Ukraine can receive money from anyone in the world just by creating a Bitcoin or an Ethereum address. It's free for everyone to do. And this is incredible infrastructure. This is like roads for money, you know? And we saw $100 million raised by Ukraine, like so quickly at the beginning of this current conflict. And that was only made possible because Bitcoin and Ethereum, they issue their own currency to fund people who are providing that public infrastructure. And then there is also demand for that currency to keep it valuable. And that is the really, really exciting thing about Web3, because there might be a new way to underpin the value of governments and nonprofits, the value that they provide, because they do create value. We just have a lot of problem quantifying it on a spreadsheet. We have a lot of problems capturing the value that is created when the value is non-excludable. So Web3 public goods funding can kind of be broken up into two different things. Now, normally I say on here it's donation games because there's no taxes in Web3. Not really, you know. But here we're talking about Ukraine. I think you guys will probably keep taxes. And so there's some really interesting games that we can play. And I say games because it's the theme of the slides. You know, it's kind of like, I'm just trying to keep it light. But these are serious tools that you can use to actually do bottom-up distribution of taxation. And there's a lot of ways that you can distribute funds that you are taxing to people to create incentives for actually more taxes, more donations. Effectively, these would be donations, right? And I'll explain that in general. But the biggest thing about taxation games in Web3 and using Web3 to distribute taxes is that you can give governance rights and decision-making power, more decision-making power to people on the ground, do more bottom-up decision-making. Economic games are the whole like real magic of Web3 that I get excited about. And instead of relying on taxes, they actually rely on supply and demand to fund the value that governments usually are creating. And instead of making incentives for more donations, they actually create entrepreneurial opportunities. That's what you do when you create economic games and an economic space. You create new ways of making funding by creating the value you want to see. And of course, because it's Web3, there's a huge opportunity to give people on the ground more voting rights, more decision-making power. So let's start with taxation games. First one, the most battle-tested, is quadratic funding. Quadratic funding is, for me, I would just love to see people in Ukraine start to use quadratic funding to distribute tax money. We just ran 2 different rounds on Giveth for Gitcoin grants. This is for donations, of course. Funds were donated, and then we used it to create a matching pool and distribute that funding. We did $300K worth of matching pool funds and raised an extra around $40,000 on top of that $300K from individual donations. And the way this works is you can kind of think of it as democratic, a more democratic matching pool. So imagine you have a tax bracket, a tax bucket that is for funding parks all over Ukraine, right? And or maybe let's just say in Kiev, right? So you have all the parks in the local area that have lots of different ideas. Some people want to create like a playground, and here's the cost, and here's what they want to do. Some people want to, and some people want to create a different playground over here. Other people want to have a water park. Other people want to have zip lines, right? And so different projects can all come up and kind of compete for funding. And what could happen is there might be, let's say, $1 million this year for funding the parks. And people who want to see, a swing set and a playground in their area, they will fund those projects with donations, direct donations, because they benefit more from that. And they'll actually, where's the, there it is. They'll actually see their small donation actually is effectively a vote directing funding to a specific location. So this is a project that we did with the UNDP, where they, one of the largest agencies in the UN, and they were part of a quadratic funding round. And you can see like this $1 donation was then matched by $200. And that's a lot of incentive to donate. It's like, hey, if you donate $1 to this park project, then $200 will be taken from the pot and directed. And then the interesting thing is, though, if you donate more, you get more matching, but it's quadratic. So you square root the value of the donation. And so like a $1 donation would move $209. A $4 donation would move $418, right? A $5 donation moves $438. And so you can see like it kind of scales up quadratically, like a square root. So you square root the value of the donation. And that way it's kind of a mix between voting and how much you donate. It's a really great tool, and it's one of the most battle-tested tools in the space. And I would love to see it used, and it has been used actually in Denver for distributing funds in localities, but I'd love to see it more used, hopefully in Ukraine. Another project, another system, of course, is DAOs. So these are like small voting groups that, tax funding could come in, and a local community, maybe a mix of experts and people who really care, could decide how to spend those funds. So instead of having, like a hierarchical system of important people who make all the decisions on where money goes, you can have more smaller groups that are more independent, funding different projects and voting with blockchain. DAOs are pretty well explored, so I don't want to go too deep into it. Deep funding is a new type of distribution method, though. Deep funding is really interesting. So what they did is this is specifically for open source development, but I think it could be done for a lot of interesting infrastructure projects. There is kind of a codependency graph within every project, right? Like it's especially obvious in code, but even in in governments, there are lots of projects that rely on each other to make things happen, right? And you could say that there's a dependency graph. And so what deep funding does to kind of figure out how do we distribute funds to important things and have it trickle down into the things that they actually rely on to be successful, so that the infrastructure that core projects are using is also funded instead of just funding directly those core projects. So I'll use the open source analogy because it's easier, but I do think that there is opportunity to do this in governments. What they did is they used pairwise voting. They had experts come in, and for Ethereum has a lot of important projects on it. Let's say like Geth, Solidity, all these super nerdy software projects. And each one of those software projects actually depends on other open source software. And so what they did is they had experts who built the core projects like Solidity and Geth, and they rated the dependencies. So like Geth uses these different libraries and these different open source code, like repos. Which ones are more important? And so experts would come in and be like, well, this one, which of these two is more important? Well, this one's more important, and this one's more important. And they just kept doing that ranking system until they got like a final tally of which the projects were the best. And then an AI agent then there was a competition for AI agents to do that same work. And so this AI agent, the agent competition for determining which repos were more valuable, which pieces of infrastructure were more valuable, they would compete to match the experts' rankings. But the experts' rankings would be only on part of the dependency graph. Whereas the AI agent, the one that wins and is most closely representing the ideas of experts, could scale across hundreds of thousands of repos and actually distribute funding to those projects based off of the expert opinion. So it's a great way to scale experts. You don't always have the ability to have experts look at every single little piece, but if you have them look at a subset of it and then you scale them with AI, you can actually make really interesting distributions. Let's see, okay. But now we get into the juicy part, which is economic games. Those things you kind of need taxes to fund. These things, you might be able to fund things without taxes. And I know that's crazy, but this is how Bitcoin and Ethereum were created and have survived for the last decade. And so every crypto economy and every economic model kind of has these 3 points. First, they issued digital tokens, and those digital tokens are rewarded to people who are creating value. But they're only worth a damn if they can ensure demand for those tokens, right? And so the people who are creating value, they're producing public goods that everyone can use. And there's some sort of magical way to ensure that there's demand for the tokens so that people who want those tokens for utility can come buy them. And then they're effectively buying them from the people who are receiving them for creating value. So this is where we have a market where people are buying tokens and people are selling tokens. And for these economic models to work, you have to have a healthy market. What's interesting is once you do have a healthy market, then you can have speculators come in. And when your market is actually trying to provide some kind of public good value, speculators' addition to the market actually is a benefit because they buy and sell more tokens, making the market more efficient and support the production of public goods. Now, of course, if your market is for a company that is not really doing a whole lot of good for the world, speculators coming in, they don't really add a lot of value. But in a market that is actually regenerative and good for the world and good for like creating value in society, speculators do add value, which is interesting. But this whole thing, this whole economic model really relies on ensuring demand for tokens. And if a lot of people mess up when they come into building crypto economies, they really focus on how do we reward tokens to people. And it's an important piece, but really you can probably figure that out in a lot of ways. And maybe it needs like 10% of your time. You need to spend 90% of your time as far as designing the token economy on ensuring that you're going to create demand for this token and that people will want to buy it. This can be done with NFTs. NFTs have a lot of opportunity in the government space, but I want to make these examples because they're really interesting. Rainbow Rolls was a way of funding the wiping away of medical debt. In the United States is a really creepy place. There are markets for buying up medical debt. And so someone might have $20,000 in medical debt and they haven't been paying it down. And, insurance companies insurance brokers will kind of sell the debt to each other. And maybe there's like one who's a good collection agency and they'll buy that $20,000 worth of debt for like $3,000 and then, try to collect the 20K from the guy. And so it's kind of a gross market, honestly. But what Rainbow Rolls did is they sold NFTs, and these NFTs were toilet paper because they're wiping away medical debt. And so they were able to wipe away $7 million of medical debt by selling these funny pictures of toilet paper. I mean, that's incredible, right? Real economic value out of just nothing. Public Nouns is another group that sells these, it's kind of a membership DAO where you buy an NFT like this And then the money all goes into the pot, and the people who have the NFTs get to vote on how to spend it. They have funded, I want to say around $1 million of public good spending, including a lot on Giveth, where they're funding quadratic funding rounds. And so you can kind of even see how you can take the taxation games and actually fund them even through these economic games. So public nouns is another example of an NFT DAO, more so. But of course, NFTs could also be used for land titles and all sorts of other interesting non-economic use cases within the future governments of Ukraine. But really, the magic here is with blockchains and the ability to issue currencies and then use that to fund the construction of public infrastructure. And then with that, with that system in place, as long as there's demand for that currency, you can have public infrastructure for anyone to use. There's Zcash that's funding cryptographic research. These are old blockchains, by the way. Namecoin, which was like a way to register a .bit domain. Primecoin, to mine a block in Primecoin, you just have to find a new prime number. They found a way, an economic game, to find more prime numbers, and who cares about prime numbers? And yet we found 4 million or something prime numbers, and which is 4 times the amount of prime numbers we knew existed before Primecoin. And CureCoin is another one that, well, there's not enough time. There's so many interesting blockchains out there that are using the proof of work mechanism to create value in the digital space. I think that there's a lot of opportunity to do the same in the physical space. And I would call these regen economies. One example is what we do on Giveth. It's called givebacks. Instead of a block reward that goes for people providing public infrastructure, processing transactions, we actually use our block reward to reward donors. So donors are entered into a raffle every 2 weeks, and they win there's $2,000 given away every 2 weeks worth of Give tokens. And that's like our block reward, rewarding people who donate to real projects. And with those Give tokens, you can also, because we are a DAO, you can curate the projects on our platform by staking and locking the Give tokens and actually deciding which projects show up first on the donation page, which allows, which will make it's kind of like marketing on our project. A lot of crowdfunding websites actually just charge projects for doing that. We use our token economy to manage the process of which projects get highlighted and sponsored effectively. Another really interesting thing is retro funding. And I'm running short on time, but I'll keep cruising. Retro funding is working on the premises of, instead of funding projects in advance, giving them money and then hoping that they'll do good work, we might be better able to judge if projects did good work after they've done it. So you could reward projects after they do great work, and then the projects actually go out and get investors so that so that they can do the good work, and those investors know that they will be paid back from retro funding. So in Optimism, which is a blockchain, they're selling blocks. They say, hey, we'll reward people who are building awesome things that sell blocks, sell our block space. When they sell their block space and people are using projects, the sequencer generates revenue. And then that revenue can be funded, can be used to reward the builders and people who made that block space valuable in the first place. And what's interesting here is that now builders are free to come up with whatever ideas they think will be valuable to society and go pitch it to investors, and then they will actually be able to start building that work. So this is really interesting because now, instead of a top-down saying, hey, government will fund this, government will fund that, it's like government has an X Prize style reward system where anyone can come up with ideas that will be valuable to society, get investors to fund it, and they know that they will be rewarded if their idea actually works. Yeah, and we don't have time to talk about pairwise and liquid democracy, I don't think, right, Max?
Yeah, unfortunately, we need to move ahead. Maybe we share the presentation with our community.
Yeah, I just want to say I would love liquid democracy has a huge opportunity to be a better way of voting and create new systems for actually making decisions in like a more democratic way than the normal politics. It has the potential to even remove politicians. Definitely look up liquid democracy. It's an incredible tool, and when it's done right, I think it would be really interesting to see that at scale in Ukraine, at least in different communities, if not national level. So check out liquid democracy. Just look it up.
Thank you so much, Griff. And you shared a lot of great ideas. Looking forward for more developments from your side.